Thank you. We're going to go subject to subject. We've got 10 minutes. We'll ask all our candidates to be concise, brief, and don't hobble. I thought it was appropriate our first subject as we're in Parsons Academy, and I thought we'd go to education first. So I'm going to ask David Foreman to stand up and in a clear voice. Do you need a microphone, David?
Not really.
Okay. Ask the question.
I think you said I've got a loud mouth. Good evening, candidates, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary. My question is this: the latest school workforce in England statistics for the year ending November 2023 highlight that teacher vacancies have increased by 20% to 2,800 in November 2023 from a figure of 2,300 in the preceding year. Vacancies have more than doubled in the 3 years from 1,100 in November 2020. Temporary filled posts also increased from 2,100 to 3,700 over the 3 years to November 2023. Consequently, would you please explain what plans your party have to reduce teacher vacancies and how will the money be raised to pay for it, especially given all the other urgent public sector spending priorities?
Christmas.
Thank you for your question, David. Anyone that knows me will have heard me talk about my experiences in teaching probably tenfold, so I'll keep that to a minimum. But it's fair to say that it was actually education and the failings that I saw of this current government actually got me involved in politics, and a part of the reason that one of the big parts of the reasons that I'm standing here today. I think that there has been, over the last decade or so, a lack of trust in the teaching profession, certainly something that I experienced, and a drive towards a very narrow curriculum and a very narrow way of teaching. So first and foremost, to actually tackle the issue of recruitment and retention in schools, we actually need to back our teachers, to trust our teachers, and that's something that I know that myself and many of my former colleagues certainly haven't experienced. One of Labour's first steps when we come to power is to recruit 6,500 more teachers in those key subjects, including obviously making sure they're fully trained teachers, because we think that's very important. We also believe that there should be a broader curriculum. So, and I'm a former maths teacher saying this, so actually giving young people the opportunity to experience the arts, to experience music, to do more PE lessons, many of the things that actually schools, because of lack of budget, have actually cut. I've got a friend who is a technology teacher, and he will tell us how difficult it is for him to find a job, because actually a lot of schools have cut their technology capabilities. Now, that's a real shame if you're a maths teacher, because actually that's a real opportunity to have a very practical solution to mathematical problems. You're wanting me to finish, aren't you? And you know, the question about how we're going to pay for it, we've been very honest. It's not something that we want to celebrate, but we have to make some difficult decisions. A party of government needs to make difficult decisions, and that's why we're going to remove the VAT exemption on independent schools.
Thanks, David. Like Yasmin, I'm in school government too, so I'm very aware of the pressures that schools are under and the lack of teachers. We have had 27,000 more teachers since 2010, but I know that there's not enough. I know there's still vacancies, and I know there's more to do. This year, we've got 50,000 teacher training places available. We need to train more teachers, and there are grants in place to incentivise people into the classes and subjects where the vacancies are most. So I think that's important. I think we need to do more of that. But one thing I just wanted to recognise, I know teachers deserve all of our support and they're doing a great job. And we should be proud of the fact that in Harlow, the number of good or outstanding schools has almost doubled to 85% since 2010. And we've had over 9,000 young people starting apprenticeships. So the main point of education to be the benefit of our young people, they are getting a great education and great opportunities here in Harlow. So I talked about some of the teacher training and grants that are available. A lot of these are already going on and will continue, but in terms of funding for it, Conservative Party are looking at reforms to the welfare system, which has increased exponentially over the last few years and is significantly more than the school's budget in its entirety.
Thank you very much. Teaching is such an important job, an important role. So thank you, Dave, for your question about teaching. My father was a teacher, and I saw the amount of work they had to do while working as a school teacher, secondary school teacher. So given that, and given the priority we put on education, we need to make sure that we have a proper workforce strategy for teaching. At the moment, it's very sporadic. And there isn't a national strategy, so what Liberal Democrats are proposing is having a national strategy on workforce, specifically for teachers, and have an independent body to recognise what teachers should be paid. And based on that, have it fully funded year on year. So there's a process, it's not overnight. Anyone who says they can do it overnight, they're not really telling you the truth. Okay? This will take time. Teaching is such an important job that we can't just do it flipping a coin. We have to have a proper strategy and then have it embedded and in place. Just on a couple of things just around teaching and schooling, we will reform Ofsted. Get away from this single word that parents really rely on to decide. And I'm a governor as well as a parent, so I recognise some of the challenges with the Ofsted reports. To pay for it, look, we're going to look at taxation. We've already said that we're going to look at where we can pay money from either the big banks or the water companies and use that money, about $2 billion, to start investing in teachers, having a workforce strategy and making sure they stay. Because a lot of the teachers I know are fed up. They've got no capacity in them to carry on. And I want to make sure that we have a strong workforce that we can get young people to come into it as well. Thank you.
I'm not going to make up policy on the fly. If it's not in our manifesto, I'm not going to pretend that we've got something we're going to do. And if I'm going to be frank with you, when I looked at the education section of our manifesto, I was a bit disappointed. But then I looked at Labour's, which is 15 pages of pictures and waffle. And then I looked at the Conservatives, which is 3 pages and a bit more succinct and a bit more to the point, not a great deal in there. So I don't think any of us are actually particularly promising to address this issue. All I can say is current funding of education services is 10 billion below what its peak was in 2010-2011. We are committed to put £5 billion extra each year into education. Whether the right thing to do is to put that towards recruitment and retention of teachers, actually I can't tell you, because the detailed policy of how we would deploy that money is not yet in our policies. We do consider education to be very important, but I'm not going to pretend we've got something we don't have. What I would make an observation is the figures that David gave actually seem to be quite a low vacancy rate. Now, I'm sure people working the system will say it's a problem, and I'm sure it is, but I wasn't quite sure how much of a problem it was. And I'm not going to pretend that I do know. Thank you.
Education should be about inspiring a love of learning and ensuring that every young person can reach their potential. So the Greens are making a renewed pledge to scrap university tuition fees. We believe that education is a common good that benefits society as a whole, so it should be publicly funded and available to everybody, free of charge at every stage of life. Schools play an essential role in ensuring that all children have an equal chance to thrive. So we must work towards ending child poverty and opening up opportunities to all. No child should be left behind. So the party said what we would do is that we would pledge funding for schools to £8 billion, which would include £2 billion for teachers' pay. We also have to remember the effect that Brexit has had on encouraging teachers from abroad to come and work in the UK and have the sharing of the different cultures. So Green MPs would push for an education system that is fully inclusive, with better funding support for special educational needs and all children provided with a free school meal. We support higher education students with the restoration of grants and the ending of tuition fees. And we would abolish Ofsted.
Well, again, David, I think you highlight a real issue, not just in education, but rather throughout public service. Retaining people has been a big problem. I think we need to do more to ask people when they choose to come out of the service, why they're coming out of the service, what it is that's driving them out. Is it situations where they're not feeling supported? Is it situations where they feel they're coming up against difficult pupils that are causing them problems? And also in terms of increasing the number of teachers that we actually have, there's no reason why, in my opinion, and my party's opinion, why education should just be, why teacher training should be a degree profession, because we had some very good vocational training that produced some very good teachers. And I think we need to bring that back. Again, like many other people have said, we have an essential situation where we have a teacher shortage, and if people are going to universities to do a degree in teaching, that's an essential thing. That's why that is one of the many jobs that should not be subject to tuition fees. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We're already at 7:30, so David, you relatively happy with what you've heard? Okay, a quick, and then just as an observation to what you've heard as opposed to a direct question.
Thank you. Several key points. No child should be left behind like that. Not so sure about abolishing Ofsted. It's actually driven up standards. And in the key years 2022-23, the number of schools good and outstanding went from 88% to 89%. It's worth remembering that in 2010 under Labour it was 68%. Chris's point about widening the curriculum is a very key point. We're supposed to impart learning and to create people for a knowledge economy. And Hannah's point about taxation, how to be paid, is not sure about welfare reform necessarily going to achieve it. I think Riyadh's point about taxation, that's the way it's going to really become. But of course, no one's going to know until they get to look at the books.
Thank you very much. As I say, I'm going to crack on with the questions, because I don't want us to run out of time. Later on, we've got a question from a Year 6 pupil at Pemberley Academy, who we spoke to last week, but we've got a Year 10 pupil from Stewart's Academy, just starting out in education, so I thought I'd give a question, but a quick answer is to Lena. Here's her question.
Thank you. So I'm currently in Year 10. I'm about to start my first round of mock exams, and I'll eventually go on to do GCSEs, A-levels, and hopefully go to university. But with the current faults of the education system, such as financial cuts in the industry, is there any hope for a proper future for people my age and people who are younger at all in the future?
Anybody like to answer that one first? Hands up. Don't shout. Yeah, Riyadh.
Thanks for the question. Just to understand, there are opportunities in how you develop as an individual. The role of government, politicians, or anyone else like that is to facilitate some of that. So yes, there are expensive areas that we need to have a look at. Where can we cut down the costs of where you are going to be, whether it's at school, college, universities? How can we make sure, for example, school, college, universities, the buildings are appropriately done and fitted, not crumbling, not even there, right? So we need to make sure that we can deliver on our promises. And I keep saying this, it's important that when we promise something like this to a young person, we need to be able to justify it and say what specifically we're going to do. So in terms of just the money side and making sure you're not burdened with things, you know, we're looking at how we reduce some of those expensive areas that you're going to have to look at.
I want to throw the second questions out to everybody because otherwise we'll be too much. I was just going to give this to Hannah and then very quickly Chris and then crack on. Because otherwise we'll be here till 10.
I just wanted to say I can sympathise. I was one of the first students to pay the £9,000 tuition fees, so I understand why you would feel frustrated about that. But I just wanted to say, don't let it put you off. It is a loan that you don't take up until you're earning over a certain amount of money, and there are still grants available if you're from a low-income family to get that support. But if you don't want to go to university, thanks in large part to the work of what Robert Houghton did, there are so many degree apprenticeships available now where you don't have to take out any loan, you earn while you learn, you get a degree at the end of it, you go straight into a well-paid job, and there are lots of opportunities to do that, in Harlow and further afield. And we've got loads of, I'm not sure what sort of subjects and stuff you're interested in, but there's businesses moving into Harlow all the time. We've got the science part, the innovation part, high-skilled, high-tech jobs that will all be there for you and future generations.
I'll be really quick. First of all, really thank you for the question and coming here today and asking that question. And I think the fact that you're even asking that question shows how much work politicians like us have to do. Because what we don't want to see is a situation where the next generation of people from Harlow are worse off than our generation. So thank you for the question. I think there is reason to be hopeful. I think there are huge opportunities. I think that, if we play it right, can be at the heart of the green energy revolution, for example. And there are lots of other opportunities. And I don't know what you want to say. I'd be interested to chat to you about that. But I think there are reasons to be optimistic. But I'm sad to hear that you feel that you need to ask that question.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the next subject. I'm sorry, Yasmin, we actually moved on. You took up a lot of time in your opening speeches.